Later on, you get to make decisions that have even greater gravity. You get to decide if a person is dangerous, and the police officers or the nation's officers going over there to see them will either shoot them on sight or arrest them. So you make life and death choices. Let's take a seat and have Daniel Marx, one of the minds behind Orwell, give us his thoughts on what went on in creating this game. And I'll start with the obvious: the inspirations that were involved in the inception of Orwell, other than, of course, George Orwell himself.
Yeah, first of all, thank you to the Goethe-Institut for inviting me. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for playing the game. What was the inspiration source for the game? We started this game as the first really commercial game we ever worked on as a company. We were just funding our own company at that time, and we were looking for a theme to make a game about. And we had the rough idea to make a game that was a thriller story somehow, and it was only taking place on a desktop. But we had no idea what the topic should be. And then came the Snowden revelations. That was exactly the time of the Snowden revelations, and it was absolutely spot on. It was clear, okay, we have to make a game about that. We have to make a game where you spy on people, and that would be perfect for a thriller story where the whole game, the whole narration takes place in documents and in social media profiles and chats, etc. And it would only be natural to read through all the stuff because you're spying on people, basically. So it was perfect for what we had in mind to make a game about. So the Snowden revelations was really for the topic. It was the main inspiration. The whole revelations that came out around that, and it was in the news all the time at that time.
So that was the trigger, let's say.
Yes.
How do you feel now, after Cambridge Analytica and all that came to light? How do you feel about this entire endeavor now?
It was quite scary while we were working on the game. We were working on the game from 2014 to 2016. At the end of 2016 it was released. And during that a lot of stuff happened, including the US elections in the end phase of our development, and it was becoming more scary by the minute. It was really what are we working on? This feels too real. Can we even, at one point I believe we thought, can we even make this public? Because this might be a bit, I don't know, it might be too real, especially when just after a terrorist attack or so happened. It was just like, hey, should we actually publish something like that? Because, it might be too early or something.
Too soon, as they say, with the joke. Yeah, I love how Cassie was actually apprehended while mid-chat.
Yeah, if you pay attention to the screen, our investigation team broke into Cassie's apartment while she was talking with Juliet. So she sends us messages, and she's not there. And by the way, there's breaking news. There are 2 dead after second explosion, meaning that she is not our suspect. We convicted a woman to be arrested and be branded a violent terrorist, and she's innocent.
Well, innocent is a large word. Yes.
She's innocent here.
Yes, for that specific bombing. Well, let's move over to Dino Pastos, who's an internet security expert. We threw the word fear and danger and all these, and being scared of this information. How realistic is all of this that you witnessed on screen today when you apply it to real life?
It's as real as it gets.
Thank you, because I was scared.
No fear-mongering, everyone. It's okay.
So, coming back to what happened with the Snowden leaks, for those who might not know, it was around 2012 2012 or 13. When was the first? Yes, 13. So what Snowden did, he basically, let's say he was the operator of this kind of huge information system which connects the dots and makes it matches all the information in order to derive a decision. The ethics and the morality, according to Snowden, made him leak all this information and say this is wrong, which basically started the whole we're monitored, we have no privacy, how can a government or a democracy work without privacy? Well, in my opinion, it can't. Because when you don't see your privacy as something which is valuable, pretty much if you don't care about your privacy, then you don't really have anything to say. You're just an observer, you are somebody who has no opinion or who cannot express an opinion. When everything you say, do, or want to do is monitored, I wouldn't say curated, because at this point we are nobody's stopping us of making our views public, but then we have to pay for the consequences if we upset the wrong people. It doesn't mean it's illegal. There's a huge issue when it comes to what's legal, what's illegal. For me, privacy is a human right. According to the UN, it is a human right. It's nothing that somebody can just touch on it and abuse it for their own benefit or even for information. Going back to the game, even if the information is connected and we found some, let's say, red flags that this suspect is dangerous, let's go to the point where he or she was not arrested, but was discussed about online, and the name came out, which happens. Like, we had a suspect, this is XYZ suspect, he did this, this, and this. So basically you destroy somebody's reputation based on false information, which comes from, I put it in quotes, sources which we trust. Let's say secret services, side information, our emails, our messages, everything that we basically broadcast or publish on the internet, somebody has it. And it's not just us. Sometimes we don't have it and somebody else does have it. So what you had said in the beginning about whatever we post on the internet, it's there and it will probably live there until something bad happens. Let's say a disaster, not because somebody wanted to destroy it.
Until Skynet.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that this kind of technology is already in place, because if we have artificial intelligence today going over all this big data we are collecting, well, not me, I mean what the systems are doing, at the end of the day, if you program some artificial intelligence to act upon information, eventually it will. Now, what it will happen and how this way to affect us, hopefully up to now we haven't seen or we haven't heard of something that will be going into place to make these kind of decisions, but it exists, not in the legal system. Of course, it might exist in the commercial environment, like Amazon, Facebook. All these companies use all this information we generate for their own benefit, like to optimize their sales, to optimize our purchasing habits, to decide on how to sponsor their adverts for politics, which we've seen with Trump and others, not just Trump, because the previous election also had, which is not apparently is not discussed as much. But yes, it was the same method that was used. Social media basically gives everything about us, and you can tailor-make a campaign in order to make our eyes move and make a decision on the spot. So yes, this is happening, and it's gonna get worse if, well, first of all, when we know about it, then we can
take action.
At this point, I believe that we are in a deep sleep currently. Although all these things have happened, we wake up every day and it's not in the back of our head that is something we need to solve as a community or a country or a nation.
Going back to these practices being older, not a recent study actually, a very old study revealed that toy companies would research the amount of times a child would blink, so that they would know how many times they would put the toy on screen, on full screen. So these morally gray decisions have been the order of the day for big corporations for years. Going back to Daniel, what were the challenges in weaving this story that goes places? To be fair, it starts with Cassandra and it starts weaving this web of people and events that eventually go. I wouldn't say out of proportion, but they reach the very top of the nation. Of the party, as they say.
Yeah, it was a lot of experimentation to write the story. Actually, when we started out, we had, like I said, it was our first game. We had little experience to no experience, and we were experimenting a lot in how we could tell the story just by putting together documents. How we had to set up the story so it worked in this environment. So this is actually the whole game. Let me spoil that for you if you're going to play that. So I'm sorry. This entire game is focused on an activist group. This activist group called Thought will come up again and again, and all the members are connected to it. And this was a very conscious decision because we needed to limit. We needed a natural border for the game. Like, okay, we are only focusing on the members of this activist group, so you don't have to spy on, like there are a lot of other persons, of course. You could also theoretically spy on, but that's like the border of the game. So we didn't have to create content for them as well. So this is why we decided to set up an activist group for that. And so it's basically the setup for the story was a mixture of how can we tell a story through documents, but also in the system so that it works in this system, like
Well, the term Orwellian nightmare is as old as the author himself, which brings me on to the I think the more hot topic here. Regarding security and who watches the watchman, and much like the question that was placed where we were playing the game, could a machine like Orwell be utilized solely for good? Is there any way this can be controlled? I want to start with Dino on this.
Okay, so let's go back to how this system or any system gets the information. For me, this is the most important part. I mean, why does the system have access to my messages, to my emails, to my calls? Of course, today, when you ask, there is no such system. There is, they say, we don't read your messages, we don't monitor the GSM network, we don't hack internet accounts. We all know this is false for two reasons. One, because it happens every day. The technology is there, everybody uses it. We are dealing with humans, so if humans are not trained or don't have a security conscience, then all this security and privacy is down the drain, because if the person who holds the information does not care, then why should anybody else? And the second reason is that we know that all this information that's been gathered, most of it's leaked. We have it already. We have all the information that all these services or governments and their tools. We have the tools and the info that all these agencies have collected because somebody hacked them. So, going back to who is the
who
king,
watches the
god,
watchman, the gatekeeper?
Yes,
Yeah.
At this point, everybody has the same information, technology, and tools because somebody messed up. There is no, let's say, chain of authority to guarantee to avoid misuse. And we know, I personally know, I've seen it happening here, happening in other countries, it happens everywhere, where people who have access, going back to the dilemma, to see if I have access to spy on somebody, what do? Do I use this information for my own benefit, which happens, we know it happens, both in governmental, police, or other agencies or companies who have sensitive information, Yes, it's abused. I mean, just by looking at it, you've abused it. It's stuff that you are not allowed to see. Unless there's, of course, some legal framework, some court orders which will make all this surveillance legal, considering the fact that they have the information and the evidence to make this case plausible for an investigation. Now, all these criminals who are now taking advantage of all this information which is leaked is basically the result of this happening in the first place. I mean, we have all these activities that came after the leaks of information and tools, which all these governments have created for their own benefit, which they have the right to do so. It's like a weapon. Of course,
data is a weapon,
yeah,
yes.
when we're talking about governments building technology to spy on other governments, it's an act of war, in a sense, to basically infiltrate another country for information. But it's accepted between nations. But a missile is not. If you launch a missile between two countries, which people can see and there's visible damage, there's of course a different outcome. In this case, we don't really see much happening unless it has some geopolitical value to basically say, Russia hacked China, China hacked the US, and ongoing. So now people are fighting back. Since the Snowden release and all this information that this is happening, the first thing that we noticed from the security side of things is that people are asking, okay, how do I make it harder for somebody or someone or some government to have a copy of all my information? Which is the start of building the right culture and basically enforcing the fact that you've lost one of your human rights and there's ways to gain it back by fighting back. And one of it is called encryption. Of course, it's an overrated term. When we talk to each other, we don't talk in plain text like we saw on the screen. So even if somebody's trying to read what we're saying, they get garbage. Okay, most of the applications today use this information, use this technology, but not all of them. Like Facebook Messenger does not use this by default. WhatsApp does, but we don't really know because it's not open source. We can't really trust people who are serving us software or hardware, even the people who make phones. We need to trust them, or computers, that they're not selling or planting backdoors which have found.
Small clarification, you've used a couple of terms there that a lot of people might not be aware of, like open source and backdoor.
Let's say open source software is when, I'm going to talk with names because we all know them. Microsoft makes Windows. Everybody knows what Windows is. You can't get the source code to the operating system. So you don't know how it works, you just know what it does. You don't know where the information is going, how it's processed. Of course, they try to tell you sometimes that this will be sent to third parties or whatever, but you don't really know. It's a trust thing. No country has audited the code for its citizens. It's audited for their military or their government. So now there are technologies where you can get and you know exactly how they work. They've been audited by third parties. Of course, sometimes it's free. That's not the issue though, because price does not give a weight of security. You can get the best security for free, you can get the worst security and pay for it. It goes both ways. So now where we're building as a community this culture of I want to be safe, not because I have something to hide. This is the important part. Because when I talk about privacy, the first question I get is, why are you so bothered about not being monitored? First of all, it's a human right. Second of all, if I can't talk freely, why should I talk at all? I mean, we don't live, hopefully we're not going to reach this point in any age where we have a state where they don't allow us to say things, or which happens in many other countries. Or they stop specific information coming to us in order to avoid us to react. But privacy is something that when you lose it, you can't really gain it back to its full. I wouldn't call it a broken glass, because you can be careful to a point, but if something leaks about you, it's there forever, even though it might not be important to the people reading it, but for you, it's your private, maybe your thoughts, your messages, your expressions, it doesn't matter. That's why we talk to people in the way we do, That's why we make connections with people we select, and it's not for everybody to monitor what we're saying. So going back to the culture, people are fighting back. And this is one thing that is getting bigger every day. We get announcements and all these news about companies who were hacked or the information was leaked, and we know that we're inside that leak, and we run after, we try to find what kind of information do these people have on me. I need to go change it. If I use this password somewhere else, if I use this email address, I need to make sure that it's not going to be plugged into a system like this. By the way, this is what happens, by the way. If some company gets hacked, like let's say Yahoo, Facebook, Google, and your email and your password is leaked, it's plugged into a system and all these bots grab, because it's a list of ready-made access, like keys. So they either use them for monitoring, for information gathering, for profit, for utilizing our hardware to be part of an attack. We can be mixed up into a huge hacking campaign without knowing, because we didn't care or we don't monitor our stuff enough.
Going back to Daniel before allowing questions, because I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions. Did you consult an internet security expert while writing Orwell?
No, we didn't. But we did a bit of research on the actual Snowden leaks and how PRISM and those tools work. But we decided a lot of those tools, as I know, work on a lot of metadata. So you get to know who called whom when and how many times, but not the actual contents of the call. But we consciously decided against that because we wanted to convey a gripping story, and we wanted to have this feeling of actually really spying on people and making stuff really personal. So we decided that this tool should be, it's kind of a crowdsourced surveillance tool where a lot of individual agents spy on a lot of target persons, and they can basically, the Orwell tool can basically monitor and track everything up to the contents of individual information. And
what else is on the pipeline for Osmotic, just for reference? Anything you can say.
Okay, I can say, this is shameless self-promotion.
Please, this is your product on screen, and we're proud to host it.
Thank you. At the end of the month, there's gonna be localizations for this game. This game was only available in English so far, almost for 3 years, which is a bit of a shame, but we finally managed to make some localizations for this, and it's gonna be localized in, I believe, German, French, Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. And we also have a community project where other languages, where people can translate it into other languages, so we can make those languages available step by step when they are done by the community. This is the immediate thing that's in store, and what we also want to do is we're working on a mobile port of this, so you can play this on your phone or your tablet. And I don't know when this will be released. It's been in the works for a while now, but I would assume it to release at the end of the year, towards the end of the year. I hope we will get this out this year, and yeah. And we're also working on a new project which I absolutely cannot talk about, mostly because I don't know myself, because we just it's just a concept right now, and we're pushing around ideas. But it's gonna be very different to Orwell, much more graphic. This game is highly text-based, as you see, and very, very interface-based, and we're trying to do something else completely, because after almost 5 years, we're a bit fed up with that, to be honest.
Well, maybe the theme might, human interaction, it will leak into your next title.
Actually, you're kind of, if the game will be as we imagine it to be right now, you will again be somehow spying on people again. So maybe it's not that far from Orwell. Maybe it's just
well, osmosis.
what we like to do.
Nice. Now, Because I know you probably have a lot of questions, so hands up. Let's see if whoever wants to ask anything. Let's go with the gentleman here in the front.
Hello. For me, there's this element that we like to fantasize about the kind of totalitarian surveillance. That
Yeah.
I know the surveillance is real, and they gather. Basically, my approach to internet is that every word I put in any platform is public and will stay forever. But for me, the kind of more realistic threat here is how our legal systems are dealing with this. Because I know already in Finland, I'm from Finland, people can get arrested like this just by the secret police, for example, doing an investigation and looking at what kind of presentations you did at uni and all that. That happened to a friend of mine. He's an immigrant from Africa, so that was why he was being searched in the first place, which is a legal question. It's a political question. This would never happen to a Finnish person. So my question is, still we live in societies, at least in most European countries, where still you cannot be prosecuted through this kind of investigation. You know, you still have a rule of law behind your back as a citizen. So for me the threat is more if our legal system is being changed towards more totalitarian systems. And that's why I see that there is this like level of fantasy, which for me is more interested to talk about the kind of political, legal reality behind this. If you have any comments.
I believe this is what. You're right. Usually, your legal system should protect you from that. That you cannot be arrested on mere suspicions, but you need concrete proof in a way. And we try to in the game we try to handle that a bit through this ominous safety bill, which is a bit of the reason for everything, where everything has just become. The standard for privacy has been lowered, and you can be arrested more easily on easier assumptions and stuff like that. It's not the nation is not, strictly speaking, authoritarian or something. It's not. It's actually it's supposed to be a democracy, but the legal standards have been lowered.
I think supposed to be a democracy should be on the nation of the profile of every nation on earth. Should be sometimes a democracy.
Yeah.
What does Dino have to say about the future of law? Would they eventually have the right?
Let me comment on the question.
Of course.
Because secret services usually give information to police, which are not the same service, by the way. They're not connected in any way. At least I know from how it happens here, it's not part of the police. It's let's say, the national security group of people who have information. And no. That's crime department. That's police. So let's say we have an equivalent to the NSA here, like every country has. And they call up somebody and say, look, this guy, look into him because we know he's doing this because of this info. So then the police will go monitor him in ways which are not intrusive, like in public, follow him in the car, ask around, start building a profile. The first party is never mentioned. So there is no connection to illegal information. So if I have, somebody says like, look, I saw Dino going, importing illegal contrabands, whatever, blah, blah, because we read his messages, we know. That fact can never be presented in court because it was not collected legally. So, of course, they're careful when they want to abuse the information they want, to a point where they won't have to be called in to verify their findings. So there's an unjust balance of who talks to who. So it's like rumors are made fact, but without having any consequences if they're not. So if a case goes to court and the information that was given about me or anybody else was proven to be acquired illegally, then the case is dismissed. So the damage has gone on to the person who was a suspect. Of course, we said that before. So you're guilty, you're innocent until you're found guilty, but what happens in between? All this information which was pegged to me, or all these ideas which were put my names on them, are false. I mean, okay, you can sue, but that's not going to change what happened to your status or your other people's opinion based on what they were saying about you. So it's not fair. If this way of gathering, first of all, I disagree with any type of gathering of any type of information. If there's no consent, it's illegal. If there's a consent when it comes to, yes, you can sell my information to other people, yes, that's different. But no, I don't agree with people having the data and then receiving a court order to use that data against me, because it's against the whole concept of privacy, even though it's a legal request. Now, in telephone companies are obliged by law, this is a European law, to hold all the information, including content, although they won't say that, for 6 months, just in case. But they do it for everyone. Now, why? Because the local laws or the European laws says that, yes, we need 6 months of data in order to go back in case we have a court order, because there always has to be a court order.
Including content of call.
Yes.
So they record every call.
Yes. If they say no, then I can show you a machine that somebody can build at home and make it do the same thing. I mean, technically it's possible, especially if you're sending all the data to the telco company or the people who are routing your calls to other services or to other countries. Every single step can get a recording, because it won't go through unless they can read it or see it in order to process it accordingly. And this applies to emails. Although emails, they only say they only have the from address, the to address, and the subject. I don't believe that, because if you're getting that, you have most of it already. And so all this information, pictures, I mean, now they're pegging us with image recognition. So if you're walking outside and there's a public camera, then they know you walked through there. Now, how do they get your picture? They have your ID. They don't need your Facebook, they don't need the internet, they don't need anything that you've created. And one fun fact to know is that now we can do image recognition just by this area only. You don't need anything else. This is unique to every human. The distance.
Fun fact.
Yeah. Distance between eyes, bone structure, that's how Face ID works and all that. So just by walking outside, or if somebody's taken a picture of you and uploaded it somewhere, you're there. I mean, there's a tag somewhere that you were standing here, you were next to somebody, and this is not violation of privacy because you're in public. But they're abusing public information which was not given by, you did not give your consent to be used, especially against you. I mean, that's a serious issue. So for me, it's a mess the way how data is gathered and then summoned upon by courts to be used because this is the only way they can protect. No, my opinion on how to solve the problem of either terrorists or whatever. How did they do it before the internet? They worked better. They were working more. They had their investigative procedures were different. Now it's because it's easier. They just click a button and it's all there. So a policeman would go and make 1,000 investigations and talk to how many people in order to derive his logical, his logic in arresting somebody. Now it's basically derived by a few key points, and we trust it because it's there. It's data. For it to be there, somebody put it there. It can all be fake. What if I write chats and I basically implicate people? I went to Rixos and I gave him the bomb, so it should go off tomorrow. They're gonna knock on his door. I don't exist, fake name. I mean, it can work both ways if you think about it. If they believe what people say as true, then we can basically mess with them if we want to. I'm not saying to do this, but I'm just saying this information is there as information. It's
Someone
not
taking notes?
Okay, just so recap, there's a secret group that monitors people. It's not answerable to court. The phone companies collect our data, and you can be recognized on any public camera.
That's fantastic.
Sleep tight tonight.
Yeah, the world is a wonderful place. Yes.
From what I know, they don't just use mass data internet gathering. They use that information in conjunction with human intelligence, signals intelligence, image intelligence, and so on. That's just a point. But my question, by arguing against mass data internet gathering from the state, could we be led down a slippery slope where we argue against any type of intelligence gathering from the state? And if so, could we be led down a path where we dismantle collective security and by extent the state?
Well, when you have a target, you have a targeted monitoring. Okay, they hack an individual, they hack a group. When you don't have the skills, or you don't have the technology or the know-how now, then you collect and analyze later. That's what the NSA is doing. They literally cut the fiber optics under the sea for the internet, and they record everything, not because they can read it today. We have encryption, we have SSL, we have secure mechanisms today, which tomorrow won't be secure. So they'll be able to open a box that they had 20 years, I would say weeks now, because of the computing power they're buying is huge, and then go back to something they could not open and use it in the future. So that's one reason there's collection today, not because we want to have everyone's information. Of course, that's useful, but that's what they claim, that they can monitor and read and go back later. It's still, for me, this is the same mass gathering. You don't know about it. Well, now it's out, everyone knows. They're not saying they're not doing it. They actually make laws to make it legal, like the Patriot Act, there's laws where they allow the NSA to monitor a specific network, T-Mobile, for example, because they know that X amount of targets are on the network, but that includes every single subscriber. So, violating my rights in order to do the work, to arrest someone else. How do you?
In order to provide collective security.
Collective security, okay. That's an argument that you need to basically run over a test, because they've been doing this for how many years? Terrorist attacks still happen. It's a generalization, it's not a solution, but I'm for better procedures in order to give the population the feeling that, look, we care, you have some rights, we're here to protect them, so we've done this. Now, that's not the case. It's exactly the opposite. We don't care if you're complaining. We're doing what we're doing because it works for them, and for anybody who is in that position. And at the end of the day, national security is more important than anything else, and then the conspiracies come into play. Were there any false flags in order to place these kind of laws into policy? Was this something that happened overnight and the technology existed the next day and now we can monitor it? For me, all these things are not as simple and clear as they seem. Of course, geopolitical interests are always above local law. That's why we go to wars and stuff. I mean, if people would decide if we go, they'll say, no, we won't go to war, but the government will make the decision for you. And in this case, they're making the decision for us. We don't care about your privacy. We're doing this for collective security. And people are reacting. I mean, one of those are me, and I believe there are mechanisms and ways to go around this, because this didn't happen before. I mean, before this technology existed, they didn't rely on everyone's voice to go and see, okay, what did everyone say, and find the person who said this word and go that way.
Today, they also rely on human intelligence, on signals intelligence.
Yes. But then again, you end up in the front of a court. I mean, all this intelligence and all this information and evidence needs to be balanced out and weighted, and for somebody who has the experience or the one who wants to hold the law to make the right decision based on correct information. Now, we have too much information, and this information, if I read it, I'll make a different like the game. I mean, the game is a perfect example. If it depends on who's behind this decision making. And at the end of the day, I'm sure that you know that court cases can go one way and another, and it's always the human factor that changes the outcome.
And the thing is that we argue in favor of mass surveillance because of security reasons, but problem is, who decides what's dangerous? Let's say terrorists are dangerous now. What's stopping us from considering immigrants dangerous next, or people who speak against the state dangerous? That's a problem. We cannot agree collectively on a point where we say, okay guys, this is the bottom line. We don't go any further down.
Konstantinos is a comedian, so he takes the government in his material a lot. So,
Oh my God!
this worries him.
If the government comes after me, I'll be in a jail like the next
Yep,
day.
you got me. I said that. That was me. Who's next?
Dino, I just have to remind you that the Venetians forced people to take apart their homes and their private walls, their churches and their public buildings, so that they could build the Venetian walls around Nicosia, and they didn't last a couple hours because the Ottomans got in really fast. But that's not my question. I just thought I'd just say there's a precedent.
Yeah.
For the loss of privacy, actually. But my question, I'm an artist and I've never played a game. I'm here like totally on a mission to do something weird tonight. And
Oh, you should. It's a good game.
yeah, I'm excited. But the thing is, I'm wondering how closely you can design these games and so that they're positioned very close to the actual internet. So in other words, that someone searching for whatever keywords that you could plant into your games would then mistakenly come up against your body of information. I mean, I think for me, I have sort of an anarchistic streak in me, and I'm just wondering, is that possible to do, or would you get in trouble?
I'm not 100% sure if I got your question right. Can you just very quickly, sorry.
So I'm thinking about like the actual position of the game, like in 3D space, like how a person plays the game. You play it on your computer, right? You purchase it or whatever. You play it on your computer or your phone. You were just saying different applications intended for it or present.
Mm-hmm.
So where does the game actually exist in searchable space? In other words, if I had designed this game, I'd be really psyched to make the next iteration way too close to reality, so that people searching for real information would stumble upon this nest of mess or game. I mean, I'm just wondering, can you do that? And
So
we'll give her a card. We'll give her a card. Maybe she can become part of your marketing department.
So when I get, if I got the question right, yeah, you are asking if you can make an iteration of the game that's like intertwined with reality, kind of. Yeah. I think, yeah. I actually, yeah. I think
If you name the site Facebook, for instance, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure someone would have an issue with it. For sure.
I think, yeah, I can totally think of an alternate reality game where you like use the actual internet, like you make a Facebook page with fake persons where you hunt information and then send them in somewhere. And I would be surprised if no one had done that before. It's very very likely.
There are software today that do exactly what you described. And they're free and they're used.
That's not good.
Yeah, software. It's actually called Looking Glass. You can look it up. It's open source, which connects to all the social media legally, and it connects you to a search term and says, "Okay, I want to find out everything I know about my name," and it will connect to everything. Pull in what it does manually here when you are dragging them in. It can be done automated with no limitations, whatever, and then somebody sits and curates the information to fix some mistakes, some common, like say somebody with the same name. Of course, the pictures will not match. So there's a lot of automation. This exists. So it's not a game. It's used for other reasons, for profiling, for marketing, for anything you can think of that data can derive with search. But it's actually collecting all this information from public projects, which are not private. There's no privacy violation. But if you look at the results, you'll turn white. You won't understand that, what is this all about me? Where did all this info come from? How did they know that I've been to all these countries or whatever? My check-ins, my whatever. And once you see it, you realize that if I can get this, there's nothing, no skill involved. You just type a name and hit enter. Imagine what they can do, and with cable connections under the sea, and they can record.
If I were a game designer,
Yeah.
please make one that messes with that. That does something that, that uses that data and spits out bomb. Or in a fictional way that plants Orwellian terms.
So in other words, if you search in bomb in the game, you get everyone's Twitter posts that had the word bomb in, and these are your suspects. And then start contacting them that you're a suspect, and just to piss them off.
That song is The Bomb.
Yeah.
The world would, it'll be...
Actually,
One little fun fact about that I'd like to add. So yeah, we didn't do that for, also for commercial reasons, because if it's an enclosed project, you can sell it more easily, etc. But yes, that would be a very interesting thing to do, most certainly. And one thing we actually wanted to do for this game, but we sadly never managed to, is we wanted to make you connect to your Facebook account when you set up your Orwell account. And then some people, I don't want to spoil the game, but yeah, you know, then some people would in some way come up, like people you actually know. But unfortunately, like I said, we never managed to, to get to that from a technical perspective, because we didn't have the time and the resources. It was already really tough at some point, and so we sadly had to cut that, but that would have been really, really cool. Like, that there comes a point in the game where you're now looking at your actual data and your actual friends, like, even if it's only by name, but I think it would be super scary.
I'm already freaked out, and it's not part of the game. Thank you so much, Daniel. Wow, I'm completely freaked out. Now, one last question.
For Daniel, please. I mean, any act of creativity requires a lot of commitment to see it through to the end. I can imagine devising a video game doesn't take 5 minutes. So I'm wondering what, we talked about this being, video games being an art form. What was the inspiration? What motivated you to see this project through to the end? Was it because there'd be a commercial outlet for it, or because you want to warn people? What was the creative impulse, if any?
Yeah. So the immediate the starting point of it all was like that we had that we really wanted to found our own company, and we wanted to make a game together, and we thought about what we can do, and it was not that that we wanted to get a political message out or something like that. But we thought the concept might be interesting. It might be interesting from a storytelling perspective. To narrate the whole story on this through all of these documents. But the longer we worked on this project, the more it became clear, and the more we read into how this surveillance software, etc., actually works, the more we thought about, hey, it would also be nice to make people aware of this. So it became. It was part of the process that we wanted actually to the game to also have a kind of a message, even if it's not black and white. It's not completely opposed to all forms of surveillance. Like, it doesn't say that's totally bad in any case. It also recognizes that you can actually prevent maybe terrorist attacks or something like that. But I think it's biased against at least this form of surveillance. and it takes position against that. But we do not. We tried not to preach too much about that. So it's basically up to the player to draw their own conclusions in the end, whether they would support this or not. It's also a topic that comes up in the game. Like, I would love to speak more about this, but I don't want to ruin the game for anybody.
All right. With the last part especially fits the theme of games and politics perfectly. Can a game be used as a learning tool? I think you can all go home and safely answer this question after tonight. If one of the young members of your family is playing a video game and you're yelling, "Oh, you're playing again," stop, pause, take a moment, and remember, games are art and they can be used as tools, as learning tools. Yes, they can be abused also. But that is all the time we had today for this presentation. I would like to thank Daniel Marks on behalf of Osmotic Studios. Thank you. Our internet security expert, Dino Bastos, for completely freaking us out and scaring us.
Yeah, thank you.
My friend over here, Konstantinos Psilidis, for playing the game.
And of course, the always amazing Mr. Fixos Masouras.
Once again, the next playthrough will be on the 2nd of October. Perfect Woman, a very huge subject these days, as it should be. You'll have a brilliant, all-female, as it should be, panel to present Perfect Woman. We'll see all of you then. Thank you so much.
Und ich spiele heute für die Ausstellung Games and Politics des Goethe-Instituts.